what could we do to amplify your work in your fields, and how can we help to get this policy done? How can we, in your opinion, what would help your work from the activist perspective? So Maki, I might start with you.
Well, obviously there's got to be a willingness of the authorities to allow it to happen. For me, on the ground level, talking to people who have, particularly the medicinal side, have had doctors say they've got nothing for them left to do. So if you know someone that's got cannabis, go and ask them. That's what most of our doctors are saying nowadays. So for me, that's a big plus, that, you know, that we are from the bottom level is getting a chance to be a provider for our people. As far as the personal choice, personal use, what one person does in their home is their damn business. And as long as it's not hurting anybody, then what the heck? When I've been brought up in an environment of domestic violence under the influence of alcohol, I tell you what, I bring my kids up in the cannabis culture any day. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, awesome. And Greg, what can we do at the ground level?
Yeah, thank you, Stephanie. I think that one of the issues, I mean, I've been, you know, my previous background working in politics around political campaigns, is one of the issues getting broad coalitions together. And I think that in this debate, I hate to use this term, but you've got to mainstream it. I think one of the problems with drug debates in Australia in the past has been, particularly when it comes to cannabis, it's, you know, Nimbin. And look, I love Michael Boylston and the work he does up there at the Hemp Embassy. They do a great job, but what you got to do is you got to have, you know, mums and dads on this issue. You know, around the table, we all represent people who are, you know, everyday Australians. Again, I'm using terms that I really hate using, but I just know how these campaigns, and you would too, Steph, in your work, these campaigns work, that you've got to normalise a lot of this stuff. And so I think in relation to cannabis, see, you know, medicinal cannabis, and Alex and I have been around that issue, but the work that was done by, you know, sick parents with kids was, you know, extraordinary. And what it did was it got, you know, the government moving. I think in relation to recreational cannabis, it's slightly different issues. But I do think one of the selling points is that, and it's certainly said by a number of judicial officers and by doctors to me, that a lot of patients now are simply saying, I don't want to use opioids. I don't want to get addicted to painkillers. I would much rather use cannabis. I think, you know, that is a very compelling argument, and that affects and impacts a lot of people. But I think lastly, a reality check. You know, the fact is that cannabis is used by millions of Australians. You can legalise, you can run as many laws as you like, that they have zero deterrent effect. And you are wasting a major opportunity to create industry, create jobs and investment. We've seen it done in the United States. We're seeing it done in Canada. Happening, get on board.
Thank you. Awesome. And Alex, what can we do?
Well, I would argue that the job's already largely done. The National Drug Strategy Household Survey that was released on the 16th of July this year, reporting the results from 2019, showed that for the first time ever, there were more Australians in favour of legalising cannabis than there were opponents. There were 41% in favour and 37% against. That's never happened before. And it's taken a long time to get there, but it took a long time to get majority support for cannabis legalization in the United States. There was, when the Gallup poll started its annual surveys in 1969, asking the question, do you support the legalization of marijuana in the United States? There were 12% positive in 12% in 1969, And these days it's over 60%, and there's even a majority amongst Republicans. But it took a long time to build that, and the most of that increase has occurred in the last 20 years. So I expect that now we've got to this point, the 41-37 point in Australia, I think we're going to see a rapid increase in support. Social policy reform is always very, very slow, and it may be disappointing, but that's the reality. It is slow, but we certainly are starting to see that. Remember also what happened with the question about marriage equality for same-sex couples, that until 2001, there wasn't a country in the world that allowed same-sex marriage. And then the Netherlands was the first in 2001, and there are now 30 or 40 countries, and the number is increasing every year. So I think we'll see, we've got over the stage where there's been a trickle of growing support for the legalization of cannabis, and I think we're going to see a flood of support. It's going to, the rate of increases, I think, predict, like happened with marriage equality and like happened with cannabis legalization in the United States, I think we'll see an increase in that. Kenneth Clements, a West Australian economist, estimated that the size of the cannabis industry in Australia was about the same size in economic terms as the wine industry. So it's a significant economic player, and I think once reform starts becoming politically respectable, I think there'll be a mobilization of their resources, and we'll see growing support. I don't think it's that far off. If New Zealand votes yes in October, and I hope they will, and I know that's not clear yet whether that's going to happen, but if New Zealand votes yes, I think it's inevitable that we'll see a growing support in Australia. We've got an inquiry going in Victoria at the moment, a parliamentary inquiry. So I think the reform is picking up, and I think also opposition to roadside drug testing is growing, and that all of this will come together. So I'm reasonably optimistic, but we have to be patient and we have to work hard.